being unedited and uncensored and
Oh no.
being humans, um, nice to see you.
You too.
Hmm. So what I was thinking is, every time we chat, we end up talking about startups and ideas and businesses and bits and pieces. And there are some things that are really obvious and visible, um, that are now really easy to do with AI. And there are other things that are not so clear or not so visible. Um, and I thought maybe we could just spend a bit of time digging into some or exploring some problems that we have seen
Okay.
and figuring out some solutions. And then well, ideating on some solutions. And I'll take the transcript and run this experiment to see if we can make like a product requirements doc and then turn that into a prototype and like figure out like the dream here or the idea here is that you could have a product team that has a meeting and then you could take their meeting transcript and it becomes a product almost automatically, or at least a prototype that people can, play with.
Wow.
Yes, maybe.
Cool.
Um, but can I first ask you to give a very short intro for yourself or however long you like? I was, yeah.
My name's Janine Manning. I suppose for the last maybe 15 years or so, I've been mainly an angel investor, but investing in a smaller number of companies and then being actively involved in them. So the reason that it's interesting for me to talk to Ty is that I find across a number of boards, it's quite difficult to determine where startups are at in using AI when you're not an expert in AI yourself. And I figure there's probably a lot of directors or people that are, we're not Gen Z or Gen whatever the new Gen things are, that it's quite hard to keep up to date with everything that's going on, but it's something that we need to do. So one of the things that I've been interested in just talking to you about is that when I discuss that this is an issue, you seem to be able to solve it quite quickly, but that's not the feedback that I get when I'm perhaps, getting information that a board gets given about technological solutions, that it always seems to be a lot more complex. There seems to be that issue, like when you go to a dentist, they always talk about how the last dentist has messed things up. And I find that
Yeah.
that's, or a haircut or whatever it might be. So when you do dig into technological issues facing particularly startups and scale ups, you're never really sure uh, what it is that's the problem, or how you might provide a solution to that, or how long it should take to provide a solution. So I suppose I'm coming at from that view, that how do I upskill to sort of be able to disseminate that information so that I'm actually getting a true picture to have a look at.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I also realized that like sometimes when we discuss things and I'm like, oh, that's easy. Like the easy bits often are like front end stuff is now super easy. Like writing a lot of the code is super easy. But I'll also say that like I'm not a developer, I'm not an expert, so uh, open to people telling me that I'm wrong here. But the things that you can do, it's just like there used to be a bunch of tasks when you built a startup, and they were like sales, marketing, strategy, ops, finance, all of these things, and one of those was development. And now that development equation, I think, has shifted quite a lot. Which is also why it's interesting to talk about this, because yeah, we might be able to
Yeah, and
mop
there's the
something
whole
out.
point. Somebody that's like done a computing degree or computer science, and they've learned how to code. How does that fit in for them now with the change?
I
Their whole
think
world has changed, hasn't it? I
we
figure.
got a little bit of lag, but Hopefully you can still hear me.
Yep. Did you hear that last bit?
Hey.
I didn't know whether
Sorry,
I was
my
supposed to
internet
log
dropped.
back in.
No, I think that this technology will deal with it, but we'll see.
It shouldn't be just your internet or mine.
I think it's probably mine. I'm in Bali.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes. I actually think that those people that are graduating now, they have a distinct advantage, uh, because they don't have to physically sit there and like write all of the code, but they should at least, or they should be focusing on the architecture of it. Because if I ask an AI to go and build a thing, let's say a front end app that pulls information on different bird species and displays it, it might put a database over here in some weird way and then decide to like pull it into a second database and then display it in a language that it's not designed for. Like it often doesn't do that, but often it does do strange things. Like if you're an actual developer, the randomness of these models means that it's really hard to like actually work with it in the way, my understanding at least is that like it's really hard to debug AI code because it's all just kind of, they call it spaghetti code. Um, so like I think that developer jobs will still be there. They'll just be different tasks, you
Mm.
know? But you're right, it is also teams going like wanting to protect their I don't know, way of doing things or protect their timelines or protect their margins and go, no, 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 this is still hard. And actually, a lot of that value chain is collapsing. Um, yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, like, especially, it's just the speed at which all this changes.
It's hard to keep up
Uh,
with it all. And I
it
figure
is.
it's hard even for for tech teams to keep up with it too. That
Yeah.
things are going in different directions all the time. It must sort of uh, create an environment that's, sort of shrouded in anxiety, I suppose.
Yeah. And it moves just like at a ridiculous rate. I think there's a mixture of people. Um, I think there's a mixture of genuine innovation and things changing, and then there are lots of just kind of reskinning the same types of things. Um, but it is being taken in all sorts of different directions. I have a group that helps a lot. It's about 20 people, and they're all building with AI, and they're constantly posting. There's probably like 20 messages a day of like, oh, I tested this and this is how it works, or oh, I made somebody surfaced a thing the other day that was uh, how do I describe this? Basically, just like there are these like prompt injections that can be security risks for AI coding, and there's a way to screen your code to like look through your code and make sure that it doesn't have these prompt injections in it. Um, and somebody posted this article about it saying like, hey, these are the things to watch out for. And then somebody else came in and just built a Claude Code skill to be able to scan all of your code and make sure that it didn't have any of that stuff in it. And I mean, it is all probabilistic. So the AI could be making up that it scanned and that it didn't find these things, but it's getting more and more accurate. Um, yeah. When you're thinking about investing these days or looking at businesses these days, how much of it is the code or how much of it is the technology itself that you're interested in?
uh, I don't think that's really a large part of it. I've always sort of wanted to,
Yes.
or I like things where I can understand the problem that the startup is solving. Like there's
Yeah.
some that are sort of so complex that you just think, oh, I'm not actually quite sure what it is that you're doing, and to me that's always a little bit of an obstacle because I figure it's going to be hard to convince your customer or your user if you can't really
Mm.
explain it, in an elevator pitch yourself. So I tend, I do have different types of investments in different types of areas, but I suppose it's still more down to uh, the person or the people that are running it, um, and their vision, as opposed to getting into any sort
Mm.
of due diligence on looking at code kind of thing, because I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, we can make all of these things, but just because you can make something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah,
Um, and then there's all of these like, yeah, there's all of these walled gardens I'm finding. So like we had a discussion the other day about calendars and how they all link together and all of this, and I did some research into it. There are some solutions, but most of the time they're quite janky. They're like kind of pieced together in different ways, and
yeah.
um,
So this is
yeah,
I mean, since we talked, it's sort of been one of those better mine off, phenomenon, that when you want to buy a red car, you see red cars everywhere. And so it's
yeah.
like every time I'm doing something, I'm thinking now, how could how could I be thinking about this from an AI perspective? And the calendar one's such a basic issue that there's nothing that can uh solve my problem as well as an old fashioned diary that I can, and also write to-do lists and sort of have them in your weekly page view. And I can't do that using technology because Google and Outlook, can't sort of combine to have one calendar along with, a personal email and then a family email as well. And they just don't coordinate together and give me what, I suppose I could lose my diary. That would be a bit of a disaster. Um, but I have to look up maybe 5 or 6 tabs to figure out what I'm doing in a day, looking at all the different emails, and I find that quite difficult if I don't just write each meeting down.
Yeah. It, of course,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, the problem
Yeah,
that you're
to me it would sort of
solving is,
be something that could be part of something bigger that's sort of like a life manager. Uh, where you keep all your qualifications documents and your birth certificates and everything sort of all in one place. Uh, and
that'd be pretty cool.
I think there's some things that do that, but have sort of this overall combo.
Do you think though that you would like what is it that you like about the diary? Is it that it's simple and reliable? Like,
Yeah, that
because
it's
we could build
I can
the
open up one page and it's got the 7 days down one side, and the other side is a notes page, which I sort of use as a to-do list.
nice, and it's also, I guess, very portable. Like I'm thinking if we were to take these exact requirements and put them into a tech thing and say, all right, it's also got a chat bot so you can talk to it and you can say, hey, I'd like you to remind me to pick up milk on Tuesday, and I'd like to schedule a meeting with Ty for Wednesday. All of these things, like if that exact layout was on a screen, would it be the same thing?
Yeah, yes,
I
I
feel
think
like,
it would be hard for it to be on a phone screen,
mm,
because the phone screen wouldn't probably be big enough.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, so I
I
think there's probably things that exist for all of the different parts, but not one that sort of does everything, you know?
see. Interesting. Do you think people would use that? Do you think you'd use that if you had a life manager? Because I've tried to build versions of these a few times, and I
I
don't think I'm defining the problem properly.
Yeah, I think I would. The issue would be how does something like that sort of become viral?
Mm.
In that, all of us from New Zealand knew zero. It took quite a while for that to sort of become the default, that's just something that you do. Everybody subscribes to Netflix. That's something that's happened in recent years, that it becomes, or Spotify or whatever it is, that it becomes
Mm,
something that you do because it just sort of becomes the norm.
mm,
And it might not
mm,
be until like people are involved in somebody passing away, and the issue can be that they've just got no idea where stuff is, and what bank accounts there are, and that can really hold a spouse up, or can make life difficult for them if you haven't got all of that information in one place. So, but I think
mm.
it would be a good idea in that sense if everybody, you know, did sort of think a little bit about what happens after they're not here anymore.
Yeah, interesting. I have a friend, Max, who is doing this for will writing in the UK. Um, basically a thing that walks you through will writing and then collects all the documents and has them all there and has like a
Yeah. See, it solves one element. But if you have to
one element of it.
have one for your will, and then uh, and one for your calendars,
Mm.
and one maybe for other important documents like birth certificates and, qualifications and all that kind of stuff. It ends up being, well, then you may as well just keep it on your computer or on your OneDrive,
Yeah,
so long as someone
but
has
then
access to your OneDrive.
yeah, but then that begs the question, like, why don't we do that? Why don't I do that? Um, it's kind of hard to organize documents, or it's hard to remember to maybe the payoff is not high enough.
Yeah.
Like if I get a new, I don't know, driver's license, to upload it to something takes time and effort, and the payoff is in the future.
Yeah. It's like, for all my children and their partners, I hold copies of their passports because we've been on trips together before. And, I'd say it's not, it happens quite regularly that I'll get a message from one of them. Have you got my passport number? And, I have all of that information. They don't have it themselves. So, and I suppose I use my contacts for like all of your numbers, your electricity account. When you have to fill in these things, I just have to go into contacts and type in electricity, and then I've got, so I do use contacts for that sort of information as well, which is, I had to fill it in the other day what my electricity account was for something, and that can be a real hassle if you don't keep
Yeah.
copies of bills, and
Yeah, if it's all off somewhere else. I have a password manager and that has all of my bits and pieces, company registration number, any kind of thing that I might need, and it goes in there and it's supposed to be very secure.
yeah. But you
Um,
see, there's everything all over the place. Is that
mm,
that it doesn't sort of
mm.
come in under one umbrella, which uh, would be quite. I don't know. Just to me, it would be nice and neat and tidy and productive.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think you'd still want to look at a screen?
Possible, and then also I think it could be good for sort of like managing what you often manage on WhatsApp or Messenger. So you could have
Mm,
your family group, and people could put things in the family calendar, and everybody's calendar would get updated because you're having, family lunch on a Sunday or whatever it might be, that uh, all your groups are in one place.
interesting.
And so
Okay, so we got,
then it sort of becomes you're building your own communities, but it's not in an environment where you're getting bombarded with advertisements like you do on, Instagram or Facebook or TikTok,
yeah.
whatever you're using.
I don't go on Instagram anymore because the people that I like, I go there to check my messages and to send some messages, and then I end up looking at ads
Yeah.
and
I
stuff.
know, so
Like,
I think people would quite like that capacity to build their own communities, and then that's what would sort of a little bit like LinkedIn did from the start. LinkedIn would say, "Can we
mm,
have access to your contacts?" And then everybody would get bombarded with all of these, uh, you know, messages. And if you weren't on LinkedIn, you had to sort of join, and that was the way a lot of people joined. But I think people are
Mm,
probably looking for that more sort of authentic, the valued communities that they have. And you can
mm,
manage them to a degree on WhatsApp, uh, but that can become also quite, you've got to. Do you find you go back on WhatsApp to sort of figure out what time you're doing something or where you're supposed to meet or
it's crazy.
yeah,
I would really like, I really like the idea of a shared calendar that maybe I maintain my calendar and then I could just, I guess I'm diving into like what a solution for this would look like. But maybe there's a shared calendar that anybody that we give access to can see it. And um, if I like, say you have a family calendar and
yeah.
you
I
go,
think they would sort of be like a sub calendar. So the
yeah,
family calendar is something that you would enter, but it would go onto everybody's main calendar. So you're not having to look at, because the whole issue is having to look at a whole lot of different calendars.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it
So you
might
have a
be more
shared
that
calendar.
it's a group. It's a group, but then you can look at that group's calendar. Like say you
Mm,
you meet for coffee every Wednesday morning with your antenatal group or whatever it might be. That
mm,
that calendar is something that you all share and you can look at
mm.
it as your antenatal calendar, but it falls into being on everybody's main calendar without it
Yeah,
being another.
I like that.
Mm,
The walled garden though for Microsoft, Google, like all of these big tech companies, is that they want you to be on their calendar, and there are ways to subscribe to other calendars and to share your calendar. Like essentially, I think Google Calendar has this functionality where if you're sharing your calendar with other people, you can kind of do this. You can see what's on it. You can figure out across a
yeah.
lot of different
I think
calendars.
in companies you have like company wide, that's for the individuals, and then you have what maybe different countries are doing, and you can see that all on your calendar, and it's in a different color than your own entries,
Yeah.
kind of thing, so that you can look at the calendar and you know that something's happening in LA today, or whatever it might be. But uh, it doesn't solve the problem of linking in with Outlook if you have another one that's on Outlook.
Okay, so we got a life manager that has a spatial, a temporal component, a calendar. It has some kind of communication with your people, like your community.
Yeah, communities.
It has communities.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Um, and then it also has some kind of vault where you can have documents and you can share them with particular people if you want.
yeah.
I feel like this needs to be built on some open infrastructure because uh, there are lots of implementations of this, and I feel like it's pretty basic stuff. It's scheduling, it's communication, it's file sharing. Um, it's all possible.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Um, what are the what are the other things that you think about? So, like, say we've got this thing, and we go, okay, this will be a cool idea because we can solve the problem of um, having disjointed schedules among a community that should be tight knit, or disjointed information among a community that should be tight knit. Um, there's just more to it uh, than just building the tool, right? There's like we have to figure out who it is specifically and why they would use this over an alternative like a diary,
Mm.
a phone call, you know?
Well, it's not using a diary, it's using a whole lot of different mediums, isn't it, to
Okay.
to
Yeah.
achieve the same thing? Because
Yeah.
you're using your diary, but then you're also maybe using your OneDrive and you're using WhatsApp, and so there's a lot of different ways you can have groups, and it does need to be, I suppose, just that little icon on your phone that then makes it easy to navigate on a. Probably does need to be on a phone.
Yeah, or on some kind of device that stores the information, gives you. I'd really like it to be proactive, though it goes, "Hey, I noticed that you haven't talked to your sister in 2 weeks. Why don't you, find some time?" Something like that.
Well, yeah, you could put some triggers in like that. I suppose you could set up some triggers to say, these are the people I would like to call monthly or weekly or whatever it might be, and then maybe there is that sort of nudge, a nudge.
Um, how often, just changing gears a little bit, how often do you go into a meeting with people that you're working with, say either at board level or just like down with people that are actually like building the things, and you go, "Oh, I heard that you can do this," or somebody says, "Oh, I heard that we can do this with AI." What's the conversation like normally? Is it
Uh, I think I told you the other day about the one that we talked about last time, where I asked directly, "Are you using AI?" And the answer you get is yes, of course. But yes, of course is sort of like putting up a bit of a wall, isn't it?
Mm,
It's not giving me any more information that we're doing that, but we're not really going to go into any detail about how we're doing that.
hmm, would you rather that people just told you?
Uh,
Say,
well,
yeah.
I'm sure if this was one that was an external company, so it's probably a bit nosy to then say, well, I want more details about how you're
How?
using
Yeah.
it. It might not be
Yeah.
appropriate, but I think at most of my ones, I would be able to just have that conversation. And some of them, you tell your customer base that, you know, there's um, a new feature that is
Mm,
sort of based on AI.
mm. Um, I was thinking about this, the perceived value of things. Um, I'm doing some work to basically to pull in a bunch of data and have it um, compile and interact in a way that is really useful when you add it together. This is for reports for land. Um, and the hard part is like structuring it and getting it set up and understanding where it comes from and making it all kind of work together. But the actual creating of the thing is not particularly hard. Um, and I don't know how prevalent this is going to be, but I noticed that there is this tendency of people to say, "Oh yeah, we're using AI," but be a little bit kind of cagey about how they're using it or how much easier things are or how much harder things are. Like it's not like it's one directional. Um, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like how do they know how they can use it?
Yeah. Well,
If
it's
they if
also
they're
moving
not
so
sort of
fast that
they're not sort of a curious type, you could say. How do they?
yeah. Well, because I don't know, because people are getting left behind without it.
Yeah,
Um, I say that, but then also the fundamentals are really more important than ever. Like you can take AI and do, you can really. I know someone who's the CTO of an American bank, and was recently speaking in front of something like 500 CTOs and talking about how he structures his agentic um, kind of development, and he can do a ridiculous amount, but in the same with the same tools, somebody who hasn't got the fundamentals to structure in that way, probably like I find that sometimes when we're working, I'll approach something that I don't know how to do, and if the AI can't figure it out, then we're just spinning our wheels.
yeah,
So there's this. there's this real thing that like you need to have the fundamentals, or at least know what good looks like, know what you're looking for, know what you can, know what's possible, so that you can kind of be the guide for those. Um, yeah, and then like when people are putting up walls and saying like not willing to have these curious conversations, then how do you even have a productive dialogue about using AI, about using new tools? Because it's like, are you using it enough? Is one question, or are you using it and that's a bad thing? Is another
Using
question.
it
Like
too much.
yeah.
Just right, just like Goldilocks, huh? Yeah, it's, so I suppose you know, it's in that stage at the moment that there's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of until things sort of settle down. And I suppose that's how things advance is by going through a period of disruption. So, um,
Mm,
I can understand that it's hard for everybody to sort of keep up with the pace and to know what you need to focus on. That can be quite hard to determine.
mm. Um, Thinking about specific problems, are there are there things that you wish you had visibility into? Um,
Uh, no, I think it's pretty easy always just to ask, isn't it?
yeah.
Uh, I find sometimes after an all hands call, I'll sort of make contact with the person that might have presented that day just to dig
Mm,
a little more into what it is that they're doing. And I think it's quite nice for them too to know that somebody from the board's actually sort of looking at that operational stuff that the rest of the staff, um, you know, get notified through all hands, and that's a way that I can sort of make sure that my knowledge of the organization is broader.
yeah, interesting. Do you think that that's common? Do you think there are a lot of people?
Well, I think a lot of board members don't are not sort of, uh, they're non-exec.
Mm,
I'm not necessarily exec, but I'm quite often in those on those calls because of the way that I operate, sort of maybe as a bit of a silo, but within the organization.
yeah, and you're pretty curious.
Yeah,
You've
I
got
like to know.
questions usually.
I like to know what's the new stuff is, and sometimes I think, oh, how's that going to fit? And then after you talk to someone for half an hour, you think, okay, I sort of understand that better now than thinking, ouch,
Interesting.
why are we doing that, kind of thing. But
Um, are there any kind of uh themes that you see that are um like I'm really interested in this thing that you can build all sorts of things. Do you get the feeling that people are just trying to build stuff to build something, or
oh,
or most
he's gone.
businesses? Oh, am I back?
Sorry, I lost you. I lost you there for a minute.
That's all right. I think I'm back, but maybe we have a lag.
Yeah. I think that it's when there's an issue that needs to be resolved, it probably still needs to be looked at what the problem is, uh,
Hmm.
and analysing the problem before coming up with a solution. And then I think the solution you can look at it as a solution and then look at it how tech can enable that solution to be more efficient. Would probably be the way I would do it rather than from the other end, let's find technology to sort out a problem that we haven't correctly identified.
Yeah, yeah. The problem identification is a really big one, um, and it's something that a lot of people don't do. I think they
Yeah,
go,
just
"Oh,
like
did
tech for tech's sake. And as much as I love Zero, I feel that they've been pushed into this sort of that they have to come up with new solutions and everything all the time. And it just really, it makes stuff more difficult for your average user.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
it's true.
just not as, to me, it's just not as smooth as it used to be, and there's always all of, the report that you download, you've got to sort out all of the columns, and you didn't used to have to do that. It used to download so you could see it on one screen, see the whole report, and now the report's, a meter wide, and you've got to narrow all your columns down so you can see it properly. And to me, that's just a waste of time. The report generator, being able to generate your own, format for your P&L or your balance sheet used to be fantastic, and now it's like really complicated because they've apparently made it better. And
What's
it's
the
like,
core of it?
if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's like you don't need to keep on developing when something does work well and there's no problem. It's like trying to create problems so that you can add more features on.
It reminds me of, and I don't mean to throw shade here because I love all of the lawyers that I know, but law as a practice seems like it's so complex that it's designed that way so that lawyers have jobs, and there could be maybe because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
the other day I had a specific problem that I wanted to write a legal letter for, and I drafted the letter using ChatGPT with all of the documents. So it was, and then I did send it off to a lawyer, and he sort of decided that the language could be a little stronger than it was.
yeah,
But all of the grunt
yeah,
work have been done, and it probably in the past it would have taken 2 conversations, maybe, 5 to 10 hours of the lawyer's time, whereas everything had been sort of done uh, with backup quite quickly, so that
yeah.
it didn't cost nearly as much.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Being able to I think this is what this technology, what AI is really good at right now, is rapid prototyping. Going like, all right, let's get something here so that we can have a discussion and go, oh, actually, no, that's not the problem, or it is. Um, do you have a way of discerning what the important parts of the problem are, or is it a, a case by case basis? Like, do you have any frameworks that you follow?
No, not because it's not really my, my role to be
Yeah.
coming up with those kind of solutions, I suppose. But it's more, yeah, I suppose it's more that once a problem has been identified, the way that you're going to process that.
Mm, okay. Um, process it like, uh,
Yeah, and I don't think there's a specific sort of hardwired, uh, steps that you go through.
yeah.
Maybe there should be, I don't know, but like due diligence, I suppose.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there are so many frameworks. The frameworks are useful in a lot of different settings, but there's not a one size fits all for, solving problems.
Mm.
I think that's what keeps it interesting, actually. Um, I'm aware of the time and that you
Well,
are
yeah,
running out the door. um, cool. Nice to chat.
yeah,
Um, little technical thing in the browser.
yeah.
It should be uploading, and maybe it's at 100%. But if it's
Oh,
not,
it
just
says
leave it open.
99%.
Cool. Just leave it open till it's 100.
Okay,
Um, I don't know exactly what I'm going to prototype, but I will send you something in a few days.
cool.
Just to, it might be this calendar.
Might be.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay, see ya.
Ciao.